Hello, this is Nick Barnes from BBC Radio Newcastle. This year has been a particularly difficult year for many people, and Christmas is a difficult year for some at the best of times. This year, it will be even worse as we approach the new year, and there are many who will be struggling to find food to feed their families and actually will be lonely and isolated at Christmas. Please help them if you can by donating to the Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. You can follow the links on the ROKER Report Twitter or Facebook pages. Please help if you can.
Hello and welcome to the ROKER Report podcast. Today we are joined by a very special guest, former Sunderland striker Marc McNulty. So how are things going for you, Marc?
Hi mate, okay, yeah. I'm currently in the hotel at Reading. I've still not got my place sorted down here, so a bit unsettling always when you go to a hotel for such a long period of time, but that's football, you just got to get on with it really.
I presume when you came out to Sunderland, did you get a permanent place or were you in hotels?
No, I was in a hotel for maybe a couple of weeks, but to be fair, the people at the club were brilliant, and Leanne, she was really good in finding places and got out of the hotel and into a place and settled pretty quick.
So we'll jump into the Sunderland stuff, but this is going to be an interesting podcast for me because obviously we were both at Sunderland at the same time and have very different perspectives of what was happening. And, obviously I wasn't in the dressing room or anything, but I was down there around the place. So it'd be interesting to see your take on things and my take on things at the time. But we'll jump into you joining the club. When did you first find out that we were interested, and was that straight away you wanted to come, or did you have to think about it?
It was one of them. I can remember when Jack Ross first got the job, which was probably the year before. It was always been a club for me that I thought that if there was ever a chance, it's absolutely perfect. I like playing for a big club, like bit of pressure, and wasn't too far from Scotland to get sort of back home and stuff like that. Been away for a long time. And I remember he first got the job, and I think my agent was at him for a long time. Get Marc in. But it took a bit of time, and I can remember I was about to sign for Charlton actually. I think my agent had rang me that same day saying, look, Jack's said that he wants to make it happen. So it was a no-brainer. I know a lot of players say that, but Charlton were in the Championship at the time actually. But for me, it was just had that in my mind that Sunderland, how big a club they were, and not often in your career you get offered opportunities to play for clubs like that. So it was one of them. I thought of signing a fairy tale, score loads of goals and get promoted and stuff like that. That was a dream, but it never worked out that way. But to play for the club was an honour.
Why was it a loan deal?
I think because Reading obviously they'd paid a bit of money for myself, and they were playing a little bit of hardball, to be honest. They were wanting to obviously get some of that money back, but not a lot of teams were willing to pay that. So I think I managed to just agree the loan. Look, I was just sort of desperate to play, so at that time I would sort of take in.
A lot of fans probably don't know the logistics of a loan deal, and I personally don't know them either. Do you negotiate any sort of money with Sunderland, or is your wages worked out by both the clubs? I don't know how 100% it works.
Yeah, obviously both the clubs need to agree who pays what and all the sort of smaller details, but luckily enough for like probably 100% of players have got an agent that sort of works for that, so they'll just tell them that the deal's done, or you can go there or you can go here, and it's up to you to decide. That you don't really need to get into the sort of nuts and bolts of the kind of things. You leave it to your agent and the clubs to sort.
So when you talk about an agent there, do you, when you negotiate a contract, so this is, say, when you were signing for Reading, when you negotiate that deal, are you involved in them negotiations? So does the agent negotiate what he thinks the best deal is, and then you say yes or no?
Yeah, well, I think in most cases, I think the club obviously probably put the first offer across. So then that might be well under what you expected, or it might be over. So then you've got a little bit to play with. But yeah, it's most fans think players get paid hundreds of thousands of pounds a week across all levels, but I can assure you that's not the case for most players, and they'd be surprised as well. Obviously not going into too much details, but they'd be really surprised if they knew sort of the ins and outs of a lot of deals. But look, it's a privilege, isn't it, to play football and do what you love, and to obviously get paid well enough, so you can never sort of complain.
So Jack Ross, a manager who seemed very keen to bring you in, did you have a relationship with him prior to signing?
Not in terms of playing under him. It was I can remember years and years ago, I was a young kid at Livingston, and Jack actually worked for the SFA. He used to come in and make sure all the young lads were doing all right, and things like that, just checking up on their well-being and stuff like that. I used to work with the SFA, so I first got to know Jack when I was really young. He used to come in quite a bit and speak to all the young lads. And then he went to, I believe it was what time he was at Dumbarton. I think I played against his teams at Dumbarton, and I was doing well. I was scoring goals and stuff. So I'd known him for a few years, and he obviously knew who I was as well, playing against him and stuff. But it was one of them. It was just always kept in touch, but always kept an eye on what he done, and he said similar to myself. Luckily, we sort of got to work with each other. And then,
was it a happy dressing room when you first came in? And the reason why I asked this question isn't necessarily for you to dig certain players out. I'm not looking for that. But was the Sunderland dressing room a typical dressing room compared to other ones you played in?
Look, I see this all the time. Like, what kind of dressing room was it? Like, it depends what kind of dressing rooms you've been in. I mean, I've been in dressing rooms where boys are best mates, like off the pitch as well as on the pitch. And maybe that wasn't that successful on the pitch, but I've been in dressing rooms that might be the opposite for that, successful on the pitch and no best mates. You know what I mean? Like, you might just come in and they're your workmates, most of them. Do you know what I mean? You go home and you'll not be texting the boys, or at the weekend you'll not go for dinner or a beer, or you'll not go over midweek to your mate's house with your missus meets her missus, stuff like that. I mean, it's all different. It's one, like I said, I've been in enough change rooms. I've seen that all. And Sunderland wasn't a bad dressing room. There wasn't any bad guys in it, if that's what people wanted to know. There was, I loved it. There was like different characters. Like I say, it wasn't a dressing room that everybody was best mates off the field. But then again, it's a lot of clubs aren't like that. But there was banter. It wasn't a quiet dressing room. You know yourself. You were in around it. There was good characters, and it wasn't one of them. You didn't like coming into work. Me personally, I enjoyed it. Like there was a bit of banter and stuff around the group. There was good players, so training and stuff was good. Manager, the staff were good. So yeah, I would never ever say it was a bad dressing room. But in terms of it being the best, it's probably not the best I've worked in. But that's probably because me personally, I quite like the out with football. If you're like really good mates to them, you know, like your missus, if you're on away games, you could go stay with their missus overnight and stuff like that. But some boys like that, maybe like one or two will be like that, but as a group, maybe not so much. But it was an alright dressing room.
You struck me when you came in. I remember doing the first interviews, and then afterwards, I always liked it when players built up relationships with the staff, and you were one of the few players that openly treated staff the same as what you treat the other players, and that's something that I like, because not every single player did that. Is that a conscious decision that you make, that you just treat everyone at the football club as equal?
Like, it's a bit mad listening to you say that. Like, I don't know. It's not something you think about. I think like that's just the way you are as a person. Like, you shouldn't. I don't know. Maybe the way I've been brought up. I don't know. Like, just doesn't matter if you're a cleaner, like, or if you're the top goal scorer in the team, like moving for 10 million quid. Like, everyone should be treated. Of course, like being the player, you're obviously going to get put on a wee bit of pedestal and stuff like that. But nah, it's one of them. Like you say, is first it's good coming into training. Like, you have a bit of banter with yourself and. Yeah, you do what you do to annoy.
Steal cameras.
Steal things, hide things. Like, do you know what I mean? It's all part and parcel of coming into training. Like, just off the park, it's just as important on the park. So it is. It's good to build relationships. That, like, the cleaners and that every day would go and sit, and me and Chrissy, the head Geeds, would have a bit of banter, or go see Leanne in the office and chat with her, like you say yourselves. I think that's an important part of a good football club, is sort of close-knit, everybody that sort of works behind the scenes as well.
I want to talk a little bit now about League One football, because to me, when I watch it, you know, I'm a frustrated fan, and when we go 1-0 down, the other team starts the time waste, and there's a bit of injury, and the physio comes on, the assistant wants to wait with the ref's over there for 2 minutes trying to give a yellow card. Do you think League One is really bad for unsportsmanlike behaviour?
Nah, look, I think it's just, do you know what, I'd say this, like, if it was on the other foot, if it was Sunderland winning and Chrissy was going down or Maxie was going down and they were trying to buy fouls, they'd be saying it's clever, you know what I mean? It's streetwise. I think, especially in this day and age, you get a lot of fouls and for probably not so much contact. I think you need to use that to of course, when it's on the other foot, you're chasing a game and you need a goal. There's nothing worse. It drives you crazy. But look, if you're in a position where you're 1-0 up and there's 10 minutes to go and you've took a wee knock and you need to take the sting out of the game a little bit, and it's just being clever.
So how does that work then? Do you know, if you're in a game, I mean, it will happen to you. You're in a game, you're winning 1-0, there's 10 minutes left. Is there a guy in the team that you know is going to go down and say he's got an injury, or do you just sort of do it, improvise?
Nah, look, it's one of them. I don't think anyone would ever just fall down for the sake of it and milk it. I mean, you obviously, if you go up for a header, make a bit of contact or whatever, you're never in a rush to get up. It's just it's been game smart. You know what I mean? You need to. We could say it comes with a bit of experience in the game because you never did. Well, personally, I never used to do it when you're younger. But if you're up 1-0 and you've took a bit of a knock, you're not going to jump straight back up and give them the ball straight away so they can get on the attack again. It's reading the game.
And tactically, how difficult was it coming up against big and physical teams? Because our Sunderland team last year was a bit more technical. I would say we were a bit more technically gifted. Players like yourself are better on the ball than what you are physically in the air, and I don't think you would disagree with that. Yeah. Coming up against teams like Wickham, though, who are big, physical, and they basically want to come out there and bully you in the game. How difficult is it when we weren't set up for that?
Yeah, no, it is difficult. I think when you're playing these teams, it's very important that, especially if you've just got a plan A, which we did, we didn't ever go long. We had to out football the other team, and if your plan A wasn't working, then it's shit. Like, you're just hoping that you can battle back and maybe sneak a goal or whatever. But I think when you're Sunderland Football Club, you're expected to go and win every game. Every time you go out there on a Saturday, regardless of who you're playing or how they're playing, if it's long ball or if they're playing like Man City, especially in League One, you're expected to win. So you've just got to do whatever you need to do to make that happen. Like you say, it was never a case of long ball for us. It was always a case of trying to be the better footballing team. And like I said, if that plan A didn't work, it was trying to scrap your way out somehow and nick a draw, which there was quite a few, or else try to get back.
I want to talk now about your debut against Oxford. So you started that day, and I think it was like 34,000 there. Did you expect to see a crowd like that? And were you also, that day was frustrating for Sunderland. We should have been 2-0 down. I think that John McLaughlin got a foul that never was. And it was a frustrating afternoon. Did you realise at that point, A, how big of a club it was, but B, the pressure that comes with being a Sunderland player in League One?
Yeah, I think I've been around long enough to know that how big clubs sort of operate, how their fans are. And when I was at Coventry, Portsmouth, Sheffield United, they're all sort of very similar clubs in respect to the big, strong fan bases where the expectations are very high. So I knew what I was getting myself into, and that was one of the reasons why I wanted to come. It was the first time I'd been to the stadium with fans, obviously, that first game of the season. I remember walking out and the music was playing and stuff like that, and it was one of the moments of football where you sort of just, you know that you're going to remember that for a while. The atmosphere was really good. It was a good feeling at the start of the game around the stadium. But yeah, it was a frustrating day. You could feel the frustrations after the game as well, and especially knowing what happened last season, you could probably see why the fans were a bit upset. But it was one of them. The boys were pretty calm. They knew, look, we've got a lot of games left, so stay patient, kind of thing. Did
you think that early in the season when you joined, do you think we had the quality to win the league? The start of the season, the last week of training, did you think we were there?
Yeah, I did. When Jack Ross was there, I remember always thinking like we're going to be up there. We are going to. It's probably easy to say now. You think they would get promoted when he's not there, but I thought at the time we did. I mean, for me, I had a couple of no bad injuries. I had an injury that probably could have been dealt with a little bit quicker, so a bit frustrated. But even then, I was thinking, like, we've got a good enough squad. The boys have just missed out like last year, so they've been there. They know what to expect. And yeah, I was pretty confident that they were going to go up. Never thought they'd win the league or never thought it'd be playoffs. It was just one of them, regardless of how they're going to get promoted, that the club will get promoted.
And your goal scoring stats for Sunderland, you scored 5 goals, but I did a bit of math earlier and I worked out you scored once every 135 minutes when you were at Sunderland. That's a pretty good record. That's one every 1.5 games. So were you a bit disappointed that it never felt like you were given an actual proper run in the team?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't want to dwell on it, but it was difficult for me. Like you say, when I first come in, I was sort of catching up a little bit then. I had the same hamstring problem for 3 months. I'm sure it was like 3 months in a row. I'd come back and then I have the same hamstring problem. Eventually got to the bottom of it. And then when I got to the bottom of it and Jack had just got sacked, I think, and the new manager had come in, I think as soon as the new manager come in, I never really played at all. I don't think. I went like loads of games without having a...
You played against Tranmere, I recall you coming on.
And yeah, it was disappointing because it was one of the clubs I wanted to be a part of. At the end of your career, you want to be a part of a big club like that that's got promoted and fans will remember you and stuff like that. Had a good season, but the manager changed sort of the style a little bit, which never suited me. Which is, these things happen in football. I got that hint when I come in, but to be honest, they were sound enough for me. Like both Parkies, the gaffer and the assistant, they were brand new. Like even till the day I left, they were both trying to convince me to stay and stuff like that, which it was a big decision leaving. I'm sure you'll probably get onto these kind of questions, but it was a bit difficult knowing that I never really got a fair crack.
I don't know if you saw, but Lewis Morgan, who was at Sunderland the previous season, he came out and said that the club was a shambles. That was his brutal take on it. And I'll give you my personal experience on it. I didn't think the club was run correctly off the pitch, and I still don't think it is now. Do you get that feeling though as a player? Because it's different for me, because obviously I'm involved in the email chains and all that kind of thing, whereas you wouldn't be. But did you get the sense that the club wasn't run correctly? Did it feel like a well-run football club off the pitch when you were here?
Look, I think it's one of these. As soon as people see the Sunderland Till I Die programmes and they hear about that the club are trying to get sold and this chairman's changed and this chief exec's changed, it's an automatic thing to think like, what's going on here? Like when there's so many changes at the top, people say it unsteadies the whole club kind of thing. Everyone sort of needs to be pushing in the same direction. I think that's I think Morgie probably means by the club's a shambles, that it wasn't like an altogether kind of thing, maybe where the owners were backing you as like, this is the chief exec, this is the manager, like let's all do this together. I'm going to guess that that's what he meant, and if that is what he meant, then I'd probably agree. Yeah, in terms of the football side, was look, we come in at a lovely training ground. Do you know what I mean? I enjoyed working under both managers, although I never played, but it was a great place to come in every day. And obviously a bit disappointed, it's frustrating. You could feel the fans' frustration as well at times, but that's just them wanting success, I suppose. That's part and parcel of playing for a big club, and hopefully one day that can change.
And he also said that everyone was scared of Aiden McGeady. And again, I'll give you my 2 cents on that as well. I don't think that that's true. Aiden's a boisterous character, and there was times where he'd maybe had a go at me about something that sometimes was fair and sometimes wasn't. Scared of him though? I don't think that that's fair.
Nah, not at all. I would say good mates with Geeds, and I'm really scared of him. I mean, like you say, Geeds was very opinionated, but in the sense he played at the top level. He was a winner. Do you know what I mean? If people's standards were slipping and you want to win in games, you want to beating teams. Like Geeds was the first person to say, like, Sunderland Football Club, like, why are we getting beat off whatever club? Like, we should be winning games. And boys know, if talking back to him, I wouldn't describe that as being scared. Like, probably deep down they know he's right. Like, the guy's played for his country for however many games. He's played in the Champions League however many games. He's played in the Premiership. Like, it's not being scared. Like, obviously, when he's on you a little bit, if you're scared to then make a mistake or whatever, then that's down to them personally. But I just think you're probably in the wrong environment if you're at Sunderland. You're scared to make a mistake because someone's shouting at you to up your standards. You know what I mean? Look, at times obviously it could go a bit mental, boys. But like I say, you need, especially in football, you need to be thick-skinned. I just think for me, for what I seen, it was his standards were way up here, and if other people's standards weren't there, he would voice his opinion.
Do you think that with Aiden, a lot of it is the fact that he's super bright, he's one of the most intelligent people you could meet as well, which means he articulates his point in a way that is very difficult to argue against. Do you think sometimes that's what it was with him? Because I know when I have had conversations with him, I've realised that I am out of my depth and I'm reasonably intelligent. I'm not stupid. Do you think that's a lot of what it was with Aiden, the fact that he was so bright?
Nah. And look, I think it wasn't just Aiden that was like that. I don't know why everyone always wants to speak a bit. Well, I know why, because he's obviously not on the team. But it was like Luke O'Nien would call people if they wanted to do and stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like if their standards weren't good and stuff like that. Granty Ledbetter would, Maxie Pip, like I could name 5, 6, 7, 8 boys that would all do the same as Geeds. Like, so I don't know why people keep on grasping at something for that whole thing. But nah, he is a very clever guy. But it was look, if you've been rubbish and you've been beat off whoever it is, he's not going to say any fancy words, and he's going to just let you know, plain and simple. You know what I mean? So it was one of them. It was not much.
Okay, one last thing on Aiden McGeady. Not just him though. So I remember when last season you left the club and McGeady left, and you three with Chris Maguire in there as well. You were, I think, I read an article where you were named as problem players at Sunderland, and Phil Parkinson wanted to sort of change that. I know that that's not true, but some Sunderland fans won't necessarily know that's true. Why? What do you make of their rumours when you see that? Because you and Chris, particularly you and Chris, were two of the more colourful guys in the dressing room, funny banter. would talk to everyone. You know, I've sat and talked to Chris for half an hour before just about nothing.
Yeah.
They don't come across to me as being problem players. So what do you mean when you see that kind of thing?
Do you know what? As players, well, I would say it doesn't bore you, I suppose. It doesn't bore me, because like you say, you know, and the people around the club know, like, which kind of person you are. Obviously, it is a bit shit that papers or... Look, it could literally take, and I explain this as well, sometimes, like, to tell your family or to tell your friends or whatever, it just takes... It could be a 12-year-old kid at school who makes up a fake Twitter account and says, oh, Mark, Aiden and Chris were in a pub on the Friday night before a game, and it all of a sudden, especially at a big club like Sunderland, 10,000 fans, I've seen it, 20,000 fans, 50,000 fans, like, there's going to be a lot of lies and, like, rubbish, like you say, that, like, problems, me, Chris, Deeds, like, there's never been any problems, like, never once in my career I've been told that I've been a problem like that, so, I just laugh the kind of things off, because, you know, it's a lot of
I want to talk now. I want to move on to younger players, because Sunderland lost Barley Mumba this summer at Norwich City. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
Basically because he wasn't given game time, and there's now players like Dan Neil and Jack Diamond who look like they're going to break in. Why do you think there's a reluctance to give them younger players an opportunity at Sunderland? And I know Denver Hume's playing pretty much every week, but he seems to be the exception rather than the rule. For
me personally, Denver was miles ahead, streets ahead of all the other young boys. I don't think when I was there I could really say, not that they didn't deserve a chance. I think every young boy deserves a chance, but I think the reason they're probably not playing is because they're not good enough, or there's somebody in their position that's better. Look, it's always hard. Of course, you're not going to know how a young boy's going to do until they get given an opportunity, but it's probably even more difficult for the manager, where he's trying to manage a club like Sunderland, where the be-all and end-all is winning 3 points and stuff like that. And if he's got the slightest little thing in his head about chucking a young boy in or sticking with an experienced boy who's maybe already done it, you're probably going with the more experienced boys because of the pressure of the job. But yeah, talking for my time there, Denver was very, very good, and he was miles ahead of the rest of the boys. Maybe it's changed now. I'm just talking for my time there, but for when I was there, I wouldn't really say there was any of the youngsters that deserved to be playing every week. Not given a chance. I think everyone should get a chance, but to be playing every week, Denver, 100%. The rest, I never really seen it.
Did you see much of Barley when you were at Sunderland? Because I know last year he started with the reserve. He was in the first team the first year in League One, then the second season he seemed to be with the under-23s. So did you actually see much of him in action?
Yeah, he used to come up and train with us occasionally, and look, you could tell that he was a tidy footballer. He obviously had a bit of quality, but then you say to yourself, which position does he play in the first team? Do you play him in a 10 ahead of Chrissy and Gooch? Does he get in there? That's not for me to decide, but then you say, what, you play him centre mid? Is it Maxey and I don't know who else? That you go through a team like that and you think, so that you put him in your team, you try to find him a position. For me, he probably wouldn't have got in my team then for what I'd seen. But again, it's all about giving that young lad a chance and letting him grow a bit, I suppose, after a few games. But it's difficult at a club like at Sunderland, where they're needing, the pressures are massive every week, especially in League One. They're expected to win 3 points.
Do you think you sort of suffered with the same thing, the fact that you're a lone player, and managers look at lone players differently because they go, well, do I want to build up this player when I've got this player? Do you think you maybe suffered with that in the same way young players looked at, do I trust them because they're young?
Nah, do you know what? I don't think that was my case, to be honest. I think my case was just a complete change of formation. Not even for just the way he played. I know that I've always played as a sort of 9 through my career, and the way that Phil wanted to play was the big man sort of as his target man, which is fine. It's a lot of teams do that. So I knew early doors that I wasn't going to really play 9, and then he started playing with sort of 2 number 10s and behind the striker, which is Chrissy and Gooch. And to be fair to them, they were on fire. Really, they were doing really well. They went for a good spell. So it was one of them for me. It was just a bit frustrating that I couldn't really get in. I know Charlie had obviously been through a few games and stuff where he never scored, and you were maybe hoping for a little chance, but I think just the way that the manager liked to play and set up, he liked that sort of big man up top and sort of up against it, really.
One of your fellow strikers, Will Grigg, like he struggled since he signed for Sunderland, and it was just a shame because he's a really nice lad and he wants to do well. What do you think that we've never ever played him correctly? I mean, did you see him do stuff in training where you went, why doesn't he do that on the Saturday? And do you think it was more to do with service than necessarily him?
No, look, I think it's a hard one to explain because I've been there before. Like as a striker, sometimes your confidence goes and you didn't really look a sort of shell of the player that you have been. But Greggy's he's a top professional. He really works hard. Like great shape off the field and that. It just look, he scored all the goals for Wigan. You didn't just become a bad player overnight. Like it's just like you say. Sometimes that he's been asked to do some things that he's maybe not as comfortable doing. And I think that is the case for Greggy. And of course, every week he doesn't score, there's more and more pressure building on him, which will be playing on his mind. But so I tweeted someone the other week there about Greggy, just saying that he was a top player and that he was just needing that little bit of loving, just the sort of fans to get behind him and the manager. But he just needs to get that first goal, and I think once he gets that first goal, you'll see a completely different player.
The crowd at Sunderland are often blamed for the team struggling. That's a criticism you see that, especially now we're in League One, and if you look at the last 5 years of the club, they've fallen from the Premier League, from the Championship, struggled to get out of League One. Do you think, though, it's hard as a player to play at the stadium? Like, I know you'll say it's a privilege and all that sort of stuff, but in all honesty, when it is going bad, is it a difficult environment to play in?
Yeah, of course, it's exactly what you said. It's unbelievable to play in, and it can be a complete opposite. When you're getting beat, and because it's such a big crowd and makes such noise, if they're wanting to get a goal, if you pass sideways or back, then there's maybe a lot of boos and jeers and stuff, and then maybe the next time the boy will get the ball, they'll just play forward even if it's not on, and they'll lose it. Stuff like that. Like the fans, it's an important thing as a player to try to block out the fans, but it's impossible. It's at times, especially when you're playing for a big club at home and you're chasing a goal. That's the biggest one. It's try to block the fans out and try to be patient a little bit instead of just forcing it, because they do play a part. They can change a decision in making a pass where, like I just said, you might not see a pass on forward and you'll go sideways or back, and the whole place, 50,000 fans will be booing you, and then the next time nothing will be on and forward, but you'll be scared to pass it back. You just maybe rush it forward. So things like that. But then again, when you're winning, it's unbelievable. It's brilliant. You're playing with a lot of confidence. They're an extra man. That's how it is when you're winning. But it can be difficult when you're definitely chasing a game.
You had a spell. You scored against Accrington, and then I think you scored in the next game in the first minute against Rotherham. Did you feel like, and I think you must have picked up an injury at that point
that night?
Do you think that there was what basically ended not ended, but you didn't kick on from that point because of that injury? Because 2 goals, I remember at the time thinking, we've got a player on my hands, how much do Redden want, all that, it goes through your head as a fan.
Yeah.
Do you think that's what really hit you? After that, you never got going again?
Yeah, definitely, mate. Like you said, I just got in the team, got 2 goals, and then randomly, I think it was like a pull on my hamstring that night. Yeah, it was a midweek game, and I'm sure I'd come back a couple of weeks later, and then I'd done it. So it was like a month after I had done the same hamstring, and then a month after I'd done the same one as well. It wasn't until the third time I'd went to see a specialist, and it wasn't actually like a muscle problem. I had to get an injection. It was a nerve problem. If I'd known that at the time, it probably would have been a lot different. But yeah, looking back, that definitely halted me for doing well, because, like I said, I was confident coming to the club, and especially working under Jack, I knew I was going to get an opportunity, and that was me just sort of getting going. Really, two goals, like you said. But look, these things happen in football. You can't go over and over these things. It's just, they do happen, and it's just a bit frustrating, that especially how excited I was to join that club and wanted to be a part of a successful Sunderland team, especially getting them back to the Championship would have been massive.
In training, what was the difference between Jack and Phil? Because Jack was hands-on. I'd seen him take the sessions, whereas Phil used to sort of stand back and watch it. I don't know if Phil did get involved. It might have just been that particular time I seen he hadn't. But what were they like as coaches? Was Phil hands-on, or did he more let Steve Parkin look after things?
Yeah, little Parky. He done most of it, to be fair. He done a lot of the training. Their training was very intense. A lot of in-your-face. Know them personally, just they would be barking at the boys to get in each other's faces, like get about each other, work really hard, press, like high tempo. And then Jack Ross was a lot of it was more calm, a lot of possession. He was more hands-on, like he says. He was doing a lot of coaching, him and Potsy and Phil. They were bit of shape and stuff like that. It was different.
And I remember when Phil came in, one of the things that, even though the results weren't improving, one of the things that was noted was the improvement in fitness. Nick Allenby, I think is the fitness guy. Do you think there was a change in emphasis on fitness, or is that just fans picking something out that didn't necessarily mean anything?
No, I think I read that somewhere as well. I seen that, and like whenever the boys were probably just as fit under Jack as they were Phil, but he was just asking them to play a different way.
I mean, one thing the food changed, because I remember the food changing because I wasn't getting my nice meals.
You say food change, it wasn't massive what changed in the food. Like, it was
like they used to do them burrito things, which they stopped doing, and
pretty much the same. Honestly, it was fine. It was just, Nick was good in the sense he had introduced, like, the only thing that was a change from before was he was big on like high speed running and sprint distance and stuff like this, all the stuff that your GPS unit picked up on. He would do a lot of sprints, repeated sprints in training during the week, whereas before I'd never, not just under Jack, I'd never really done that in other clubs. It was a lot of like short sprints, like doggies there and back, stuff like that. He was big on that, training that during the week, so you were then doing that at the weekend. But when people say fitness, they automatically think like unfit and then very fit. Like, it's not the case. It's just the manager, Phil, was probably asking the players to do something different than what Jack was, and maybe they're sprint more probably. Like, you know what I mean? A lot of managers come in and look at data nowadays and say you need to sprint more, you need to, like I said, there's loads of things that it covers, how far you've ran, like your sprint distance, your high speed run in meters, like, so there's lots of different things. And I think Nick was just very big on that, and like I say, during the week in training, he would try sort of hit high numbers as well.
What do you know? I know what you're talking about. The GPS are like bras, aren't they?
Yeah.
Do you get told off, or do you have targets to hit? If you don't, do you get told about them, or is it just a case of they track it just to see your data?
Yeah, they track it every day, training and game. It can be to sort of an injury thing, like to see if you ever pull up and you've done the same thing. You've been doing too much of something. But yeah, sometimes if you've not been putting the work in, they'll maybe pull you and they'll say like your numbers could be higher, but I think they understand that it can change. It does maybe like who you're playing and what they're asking you to do that week, which position you're playing. But you're normally roughly the same. If you're in the same position most weeks, you know which numbers you should be hitting and stuff like that.
We played on Boxing Day and we drew 0-0 against Bolton, and you came on, I think, for the last 15 minutes that day. Could you feel the tension in the crowd? Because it was very difficult, I would say, that afternoon.
Yeah. Do you know what? I think a lot of the games at home were like that. There's not really many that we were 1-0 up, 2-0 up, 3-0 up, like comfortable. A lot of the games it was hard because every team comes and sits in, and like you said earlier, they're buying fouls in the first half, they're taking their time on throw-ins, they're just the horrible side of the game. But like I said, they were being clever. But for our point of view, trying to get quick, trying to get playing and stuff like that, it was difficult. And then obviously the fans would get frustrated, and like I say, it can change your mindset a little bit on the pitch, making decisions.
And you left the club to go to Hibernian, and I remember coming to do an interview with you actually downstairs a few days before you left, and you said that there was essentially no point. Did you know that you were likely to leave in January? Did you get that feeling that it was going to happen?
Yeah, but it was a strange one because I'd wanted to stay, and I could remember for when the manager had come in, and I was waiting, hoping for the opportunity, waiting. I'd spoke to him and he'd say, look, I like you, but the team are doing well or whatever, or I'm sticking with this, and I couldn't get in. I think it was getting later and later in the window, and I was thinking to myself, like, I remember speaking to him, I was saying, it's a difficult decision for me, like, I'm potentially leaving a League One winning team, what I think, team going to the Championship, but it's one I'm sort of making for footballing reasons. Just I need to play, I need to get games. I know obviously Jack, I know that I'm going to get that going back to Scotland, and it was difficult. It was difficult leaving because I know I ramble on about it all the time, but I really wanted to be really successful with that club, and it was hard. It was a really hard decision, but it was one of them. I just thought, look, I can't just sit on a bench and waste another sort of whole season. I need to go and play, and made that decision sort of late on.
What did Jack sort of say to you to go back to Hibs? Did you have conversations about your time at Sunderland, or was it just a case of you wanting to get that reunion back together because you knew you could work with them?
Yeah, obviously had a couple of conversations about Sunderland and how it was and stuff like that. It was, but I think Jack's one of them who didn't really want to ever dwell in the past. He was more quite an exciting manager, and he was excited to be at Hibs and stuff like that. So, yeah, it was all sort of positive stuff.
Did you notice a change in Jack? Do you think he learned anything from when he was at Sunderland?
Probably not. I'm sure he has learned. I'm sure he's learned loads, but probably nothing that he would share with me. He was still the same. Still, you know what he's like. Potsy. We were brilliant. Still really good characters. Still good people, and the training stuff was still the same. It was good. But yeah, he obviously has learned. I'm sure everyone learns. We always learn something, and I'm sure he's no different.
Okay, well, Mark, thanks for joining us. It's good to catch up. You never know, Mark, I might see you one day back at the stadium in the future. Even as an away player, I'll be there booing.
Hide your cameras.
Give you loads of shit on the sidelines.
This is former Sunderland captain George Honeyman here. This Christmas, ROKER Report are raising funds for Sunderland Community Soup Kitchen. It's a fantastic charity with the soul of the community at its heart, and they'll be working round the clock this Christmas to make sure hungry people in our city don't go without. They couldn't do it without your help. You can be certain that your donation, no matter how large or small, will be put to good use to provide help for local people who are in desperate need of it. You can find the links on ROKER Report's Twitter and Facebook page. Thank you for all your help, and a Merry Christmas to all of you. Stay safe.